good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day it is for you. I'm Alison Francis, also known as Anandi, the Sleep Guru, and I'm a sleep specialist and founder at Sleep Mastery Limited. And it's just such a pleasure to be part of the Della Leaders Club and being in the Health and Wellness Committee from the London chapter. So I've basically been working in the wellbeing field for about 30 years. I work with executives and entrepreneurs who are just stressed beyond belief, maybe having brain fog or struggling with just about everything. I personally know what it's like to suffer from insomnia night after night. In fact, I was a chronic insomniac for a good 10 years from the age of about 27. And being a business owner myself, I'm fully aware of how lack of sleep ruins your creativity, affects your relationships, and at the end of the day, have very serious effects on your health. Unfortunately, drugs are the only thing that really are being offered by professionals for insomnia, but I know that you can manage insomnia and sleep deprivation using balance. And there's a number of tools that I have in my toolkit. I've done it myself, and I am teaching my clients to do the same. One of my area of speciality is breath, and that's what I'm going to be connecting you to today. My book, Breathe Better, Sleep Better, has been featured in a number of magazines, including Psychologies and Mental Movement. And it really is about the connection between the breath and the nervous system. Today, I am going to talk to you about the window of tolerance. Now, you may or may not have heard of the window of tolerance and may not know what it is. But before I do that, I would like to ask, my burning question to the world is, why are we still ill? We're taking vitamins, going to the gym, health food, but we still are lacking inner vitality somehow. So the Centre for Disease Control have declared that anxiety and depression are a #1 disability. The World Health Organization declared that sleep deprivation is at an epidemic level. My question is, why is that? We have health farms, spas, detoxifying retreats, we have massage places, yoga studios, Pilates, therapists, but we still don't really get that level of vitality that we're all craving for. And one of the reasons why I think that is because we don't prioritize sleep. Sleep for me is something that should be prioritized ahead of health food. I think water is obviously #1. There's an amazing book called The Body's Many Cries for Water. And that lets you know just how dehydrated the world really is. So water is a fundamental thing. Sleep is the next thing, I believe, to be prioritized. And food is the next thing in that order. And also the right use of energy, which is basically not allowing ourselves to be hemorrhaging energy all the time. Now, moving to the window of tolerance, modern life doesn't really give us an opportunity to return to our normal state. Our normal state being this window of tolerance, which I will explain to you in a moment. When we're in this hyper state through just the lifestyle that we lead, and in particular not prioritizing sleep, we are in this hyper state, which is where our nourishment diminishes and all the tension starts to accumulate. And tension is experienced mostly by anxiety. Dr. Siegel, who's a clinical professor of psychiatry, he describes this window of tolerance, which is basically a state where we are able to thrive. We are able to function in the world, interacting with the world in a way that's connected. It's where we experience this resilience to the stress in life, where we're able to cope with stress without actually going into this hyper state. So enabling us to stay in this state of relaxed state, this state of being able to interact with the world in this just relaxed way and being resilient to the stresses of life. Our goal fundamentally is to expand this window of tolerance so we're actually there more often and we're there for longer. And actually we can use the breath to be there, to get there and to stay there as a tool. When we're in this hyper state, this very stressful state, this state disconnects you from your inner intelligence, and you may be experiencing things like lack of trust with your own decisions, and maybe a sense of isolation, perhaps difficulty in making decisions. And in particular, you'll probably be experiencing this kind of sort of tunnel vision where you can't see anything but this massive problem ahead of you. And you're in this generally very highly reactive state. You're reacting to everything around you, being more anxious, being more angry perhaps than you usually are. And what happens is the nervous system responds to these emotions, and you'll be pushed even deeper into this fight and flight response, which is the sympathetic nervous system kicking off. It really does actually take a lot of energy to sustain this level. Emotions like grief, unhappiness, anger, fear, they're all very difficult emotions to be with for sustained periods of time. And what will happen is we'll lose what we have in this window of tolerance, this space where we have this more global, grounded perspective. And as a result of that, we may well drop into this hypo state, which is a state that we feel very disconnected and completely numb and are not motivated to do anything about anything. So what we're trying to do is stay in this window of tolerance. If we get into this hyper state, have the tools to bring us back down, the tools being things like mindfulness, things, grounding work, grounding yoga work. There's all sorts of different yoga available, but I'm talking about yoga that's very, very grounding. Breath work that's used in a very grounding way. All these tools will bring you out of this hyper and back into this window of tolerance. And when you crash, you've got to actually get out of that state of feeling completely disconnected and numb with the world. And we can do that by using things like mindfulness again, breath work, and certain physical activity that we can use to get us out of that very, very sort of numb state. The breath is very much the gateway to the nervous system. And what happens is we're able to change our state by using the breath. There's a piece of research that came out very interesting, which was, I think it was in about 2017. It came out of Stanford University, that there are a group of neurons in the brain that actually spy on the breath. And what happens is the breath is informing the nervous system. Therefore, depending on what the breath is doing, the nervous system will do the same thing. So we're actually able to take more control over our nervous system than we think. There's actually a breathing pattern for every single emotional state. Therefore, if we understand what breathing pattern does what, then we're able to increase the time that we're in the window of tolerance. There's actually a really nice quote in the yoga which says that the mind is the king of the senses, but the breath is the king of the mind. And if you think about it, The mind is a little bit like wild horses. It will just take yourself out. It will pull you outwards the whole time. It will pull you outwards to your desires and your goals and your needs and your wants, the things that you're working on, the projects, all the exterior things. And actually what we need to be doing to get in touch with our inner intelligence is actually move inwards. And to do that, we can use the breath. A stress breath, what is a stress breath? A stressed breath will be faster. You'll find very likely that you will be breathing through the mouth a lot. Mouth breathing is very much connected to the sympathetic nervous system, the part of the nervous system that sends you up into this hyper state. And what we're trying to do is get down into the window of tolerance. Therefore, if your breathing is fast, if your breathing is very much in the upper chest, I often find it interesting when I ask people to take a big, long, deep breath. And often what they do is they go like this and they'll lift the shoulders. And what they're doing is they're trying to make space to take a deep breath, but actually they can't take a deep breath because their thoracic cavity is locked, it's tight. Therefore, there's no expansion available to them. And the only expansion that is available to them is this bringing the shoulders up, actually trying to make space for the breath. When you take a deep breath, you should actually be able to expand three-dimensionally, forward, backwards, and side to side. The shoulders don't need to be lifted up there to make space for the breath. Therefore, actually, this faster breathing and this chest breathing is all very much connected to the sympathetic nervous system. How do you actually shift the nervous system? The breath is an interface, basically for the nervous system. And to shift the nervous system back out of sympathetic into parasympathetic and into this window of tolerance, into this space where you're just connected and resilient, you can use the breath to actually get there. You need to slow the breath. The breath needs to be slower. It needs to be more regular. And in particular, you need to be breathing more through the nose. It's a massive subject, and obviously we don't have time to go into all of this today. But nose breathing is particularly significant in terms of shifting the nervous system, because you are taking a hormone, a substance called nitric oxide. And what that does is it allows you to get more oxygen out of the blood. So breathing through the nose and learning how to breathe through the nose is a very fundamental part of shifting the nervous system. And there's all sorts of exercises that you can do to get in touch with nose breathing. And also the length of the breath is also very important. Extending the exhale is very important. If you're extending the exhale, you are very much connected to the part of the nervous system that calms you down, the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you just literally did a faster inhale, maybe inhale for 4 and exhale for 8, then you're immediately shifting the nervous system because your exhale is longer. There's a lot to it. And of course, there's a lot of coaching involved in learning how to breathe properly. But you can certainly shift the nervous system and come and spend more time in the window of tolerance, so you're more connected to the inner wisdom and more connected to the part of you that just knows, and you can make better decisions from there. I'd like to round up this talk with a really beautiful quote from Rumi. And he basically says, I've lived on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking on a door. It opens. I've been knocking from the inside. Now, you may be knocking very hard on some doors, frustrated that perhaps they're not opening. The wonderful thing about DLC is this idea of leading a life of significance. And in order to lead a life of significance is different from the form. So you may well have the form, the house, the cars, the holidays, and all that stuff. But actually, leading a life of significance is different. And the door that you're knocking on in order to lead a life of significance probably only opens from the inside. You can use the breath to access that inner wisdom. Thank you so much. I hope that just gives you a few little nuggets that you can work on. And you can contact me through DLC, of course, and via my website, thesleepguru.co.uk. Thank you very much for listening.